Across decades of Gotham crime stories, there is a recurring fear that runs deep through the city's underworld. One of the stories goes as follows. One time, a small time criminal happens to discover Batman's true identity. He rushes straight to the mob bosses, expecting a massive payout and a possible quick climb up the ladder, which seems reasonable given that the information like that could shift the balance of power in Gotham overnight. What he finds instead is a room full of hardened criminals going completely pale, telling him before he can even ask for his money that the name stays buried. Picture this, a city almost completely consumed by darkness, where corruption is the very foundation and the streets are effectively run by criminals. So they have to have a proper reason to keep the identity of Batman a secret, and the reason is fear. As long as the public doesn't know that Bruce Wayne is under the mask, the Batman is limited. He is a man who can get tired, step back, and retreat into an ordinary life. From the movie, if you remember the scene where Alfred says, "Know your limits," and Bruce responds, "Batman has no limits." That is what he believes. So, as long as Bruce remains a hidden secret, Batman stays an unyielding force but with somewhere to retreat, leaving the mask as a different persona. It is the complete opposite of our standard assumption about how it works with superheroes' secret identity. We usually view the mask as something standing directly between the secret and the real face. Yet in this case, it is the very thing that gives his core truth a place to exist without compromise. In one of the other comics, there is a moment where Wonder Woman binds Batman with her golden lasso of truth. Anyone caught in the lasso is physically incapable of lying, and when she asks him his real name, he answers simply that he is Batman. General accepted rules of the superhero world suggest that he should say Bruce Wayne, but that is just our assumption and expectation. Yet the truth extracted by an infallible magic rope reveals something deeper about his inner world. The wealthy socialite making small talk at galas and luxurious lifestyle was always the constructed performance, built specifically to navigate a social environment that could never handle his raw intensity. Bruce Wayne was the elaborate public costume, worn until Batman could step into the light. A few days ago, I was sitting in a meeting with several business owners, talking about client proposals and the specific mindset you bring into a room when something significant is on the line. Someone brought up the old phrase about faking it until you make it, and another person joked that we all end up wearing different masks depending on who we are talking to, framing it like a bad habit we should feel guilty about. The implication was that if we wear a mask, then we are being fake. But in a manner of speaking, everyone wears multiple masks. So if not an option, then what can be done about it? I pushed back on that assumption, particularly the shame attached to adjusting your presence. I think that adapting to the room can also simply be choosing which genuine aspect of your personality is most relevant to the conversation. When you believe in what you bring to the conversation, you highlight a relevant part of your real experience while keeping other aspects in reserve for a setting better suited to a different room. People often worry that adapting to what the room asks for implies erasing their own identity to satisfy everyone else's. In practice, observing an audience simply means remaining aware of their perspective while holding on to your own purpose in that space. Someone else's opinion offers useful context to guide your delivery without replacing your established self knowledge. You expand your situational awareness without sacrificing your foundation. There is a threshold where situational awareness degrades into hypervigilance, and that shift deserves careful attention. Healthy emotional intelligence allows you to read a room and adjust your delivery, whereas hypervigilance forces you to constantly scan the crowd to figure out who you must become to keep the peace and approval. At that point, your opinions and boundaries bent continuously to manage everyone else's emotions, leaving you without a stable sense of self underneath. Misreading an audience and sharing an ill timed side of your personality is just a minor miscalculation, while people pleasing creates an entire artificial persona on the fly to satisfy whatever the room demands in that exact second. I notice this dynamic in my own creative work as well. The voice I use when writing my video essays differs from the approach I take during commercial photography shoots with clients, and different still from when I'm out on the street for street photography or sketching, simply because each setting requires a different kind of focus. These ways of communicating are authentic expressions of how I work, and I intentionally decide which side takes the lead depending on what the project demands. Looking back at those mob bosses traveling over a secret name, or Batman standing in the lasso of truth, both stories point to the similar underlying reality. They show us that a persona can serve as a very structure that allows an essential truth to survive. Yes, without any mask, the world might be a simpler place, but that situation I leave for an imaginary planet. As for Earth, my perception of this story is that the artist, while creating the identities of Batman, was wearing the real identity, as many artists do. They are their real self when they are in the process of creating, and the other aspects, like the business world, is where they feel like wearing a mask to hide their real face. And I don't think that it should be like that. I think that exploring a new persona as an opening stance can change the narrative from being fake to something new in the process of development, because that is the purity of art. There will always be another way of explaining it, and every new explanation will remind us that art cannot be explained, because art begins where explanation fails. Everyone adapts their presence while entering different social spaces. So the goal is never to abandon every mask you hold. The real challenge lies in ensuring that the version of yourself you present in any given room was constructed intentionally. If you find this conversation interesting, let me know in the comments which environment taught you the most about which side of yourself to bring forward. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who has been told that adapting their presentation makes them less authentic. And if that person is you, then well, you write something down. And until next time.